Okay, volume is a term that you're gonna hear us use a lot, and what volume means is simply how much. Okay, it's gonna be how many rounds, how many reps, how many minutes, how many miles, and sometimes how many hours of training you're gonna do. Now, volume dictates the amount of adaptation we have. So if we start to put those two together, we think that, hey, more volume equals more adaptation, which equals more fitness. So the mindset may be, well, I'm gonna do as much as I possibly can. But there is a threshold that if we go beyond that threshold, and there's no additional value, because you can only stress the body out so much and you can only adapt so much with each training session. So oftentimes athletes will simply do too much. Okay, if we look at this chart behind me right here, we can kind of see three phases of this volume spectrum. All right, and there is such a thing as too little volume. If you just do 2 sets of 10 bench press or back squat or another exercise like that, probably not enough stress to force an adaptation. You're not doing enough volume. Okay? As we start to move to the right, we get into this green zone right here, and we can say this black line is kind of like our return on investment in regards to volume, right? The more reps we do, the better, the better, the better, the better, and that's kind of like a sweet spot for both conditioning as well as strength training. Now, what you see right here is you see that kind of value line plateau. We transition into this red here. That means that we've kind of exceeded the required volume to create gains in fitness. All right, and so at that point, when you cross that threshold, basically any additional work you're doing, you're simply just beating your body up for no reason. All right, that extra 2 or 3 miles, it's not going to give you extra adaptations. That extra 3, 4, or 5 rounds, it's not going to give you more. You've already stressed the body enough to get maximal adaptation happening. Anything extra is just unnecessary. It just beats you up. And actually what it does is it increases your recovery time. And an increase in recovery time means that your training frequency is going to go down. So where normally you may be able to train 3 or 4 days a week, because you went well into this red zone, now you're only able to train 2 or 3 days a week. So when you think about training, and I'm talking about like an individual training session that has the goal of increasing fitness, not an assessment, we need to think about how much volume is really necessary for us to stress the body out to a point where it's going to force an adaptation. And the answer to that question is not universal. It's going to be specific to the type of training you're doing, the type of athlete, the athlete's experience level. But when you're doing some of these workouts, some of these challenges, you need to look at it and think like, okay, am I starting to get into that excessive volume range? Am I starting to do something that's going to be more detrimental than it is helpful? And if that's the case, you guys need to take a step back. All right, check your ego and adjust the volume.